Hello, fellow Toolboxers. Welcome to episode 352 of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox podcast. I'm your host, immigration lawyer John Khosravi, and we're going to jump into a top 10 episode, top 10 things I've recently learned. I got a list of 13. I got to pick and choose where I'm going, which one's going to use. No random order. Some are shorter, some are longer, but just random notes I take, like, I didn't know that, or this is interesting. I got to talk about this. We're going to get back to doing more of these because they're really getting more popular than they used to be, so why not? Before we start, I want to thank our sponsor, who's also sponsored the upcoming Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine. We got a bunch of drafts of articles I got to read and stuff and start organizing and creating the online magazine. But if you haven't checked it out before, check out our magazine, iltbox.com, the website. There's a magazine link. And this is the 8th issue. We have 7 others. Really, I mean, if you're an immigration lawyer, this is like a candy. It's Halloween candy for you right there. All this good content. And the colleagues that wrote those articles are pretty nice. You can always contact them too. That's in some way or fashion if you're a practitioner. Obviously, none of the information in this program or the magazine intended for individual legal guidance. That schedule a consultation with an attorney. It's really for immigration lawyers. But I do want to thank the sponsor for this episode and also the magazine that's coming out. Serenade, y'all know them already. Immigration by Serenade, Serenade with a C, one of the top immigration vendors who provides the best software for processing your applications, for managing your office, all sorts of tracking and data. Definitely something you want to look at. Always keep your options open and see what's going on with different software out there if you're not with them already. Check them out, serenadewithac.com. Talk with their team. They'll let you do a practice run. You get to know them, a family-owned company. I got to know them, pretty good people right there. And they have so many, sub things like, this you can add, that you can add. It's a lot. And the more I'm studying how to be a good immigration attorney business-wise, how to run this operation, the more I start appreciating this stuff. Before, I was just trying to get some clients and get the cases out, but now I'm like, I could take a step back. I have associates helping me and team members. I'm like, oh, there's all these, options that exist that I didn't have time to look at. And so the sooner you do that, the better, because then you realize, oh, spending so much time doing this software solves that in 2 seconds. Something that's taking me 4 hours to do. And then it really opens up the time for you to think clearly. So make sure you make time for that. And Serenade is a great company to do that with. Serenade with a C. Thank you for sponsoring us. Having said that, we'll also on November, I'm recording this November 3rd. Probably have this out this week. But I'm doing a live session. I'm going to start doing these, going over cases that I've done, like E's and L's and all that kind of stuff. But L's I don't really do anymore because it's too annoying. But for example, I'm going to go through this 21st Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific. There's only 2 spots left, so maybe by the time you hear this, it'll be sold out. But if not, there's a Calendly link to schedule to do it. It's $250 for the session. It might be in the show notes here. I'll see. If not, email me. If you don't get into this session, if I see there's a lot of demand for it, I'll keep doing it every month or every other month or something. We're going to go over like a change of status case. This is to E2, and the nuance is less than $100,000, real estate investment company, no experience in business or anything. Just graduated from M1 so we're gonna go into details, and it's live, private, and not recorded, just so we kind of more openly speak about it. 6 spots only because I want to keep it small. 4 have already sold, so it's gonna be sold out pretty soon. But just hit me up at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com or go to ILTbox, Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. We have a short URL called ILTbox as well. You can put it in there. Hopefully I'm recording right now. My video seems like it's shut down, but I am back. All right, so having said all that, let's get the program started. Let's talk about top 10 stuff I've learned. So first and foremost, there's this idea, which is a fact, that if you're a diplomat and you're in the United States and you have a child, your children born here will not get citizenship because they're under like the immunity and protections of the home country, so they don't become automatic citizens as you would in other scenarios. Now, this was popped up a couple years ago during the Obama administration, when that young woman who was born diplomats went to marry like a jihadi in Syria, like an ISIS person, and then she realized she made a mistake and wouldn't let her back because they wouldn't renew her passport. They voided it or something. And she said, I was born here, and the court said, no, since you're born a diplomat. So I knew from that story, I was like, oh, if someone has an A visa, it's a diplomat visa, their children aren't going to be citizens. And I just had a consult with the guy whose children did get citizenship, and he was A visa. I'm like, hey, how'd that happen? And he's like, he was schooling me on the law. And he's like, oh, if you're not in some like official capacity, if you're doing some side work at the diplomat embassy or consulate, you don't fall within the category that your children won't be part of it. So if you get people who contact you, or diplomats, they may have children who have citizenship where they shouldn't, or they have children who didn't get citizenship but they should. So just be aware of that nuance, because it doesn't really come up. I mean, I don't know how often diplomats hire immigration lawyers, so it's not something we deal with frequently. But in this case, the child's going to be 21 in a couple of years or a year or so, and he wanted to figure out, hey, could we do it now, like adjustment of status through the child, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, if that's the case, that's possible. They're going to be 21, they're U.S. citizens. So when we have a heads up that these options do exist, don't write them off. Number two, if you're going to do adjustment of status for a person that had asylum and they had a work permit for asylum, most likely they're going to delete the work permit or deny the work permit for the C9 category in particular, because they'll say C9. So if you read the I-765 instructions, and this also should reference 8 CFR 274A 12C9, says if you're admitted as a refugee and have applied under Immigration Nationality Act section, essentially you're adjusting status based on asylee, the category should be like A3. Do not file I-765 on eligibility C9. Having said that, even they sometimes they'll approve it, sometimes they'll still deny an adjustment-based EAD because they'll say you already have a work permit based on the other category. So just be mindful of that kind of cases. We don't really do asylum adjustment too often. I remember when I first started, I do it all the time. But I haven't done it so many years that I don't remember all the nuances. Even the notes I took, I don't remember all the nuances here. But just be mindful. Tell the person that the work permit might get denied. It didn't matter before before April of 2024 because there's no filing fee for it. So it's like, okay, give it a shot. It might work out. But now that people have to pay extra $260 for it, why do that? All right, next thing is the updated Form I-131. This is a big deal because this form was the last one essentially that they haven't updated. The form as it was really bad because it was missing a bunch of important stuff that we needed to include in there. However, it was only 5 pages and most of the pages were blank. Especially if you're going to do a re-entry permit, advanced parole, all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty easy. So they redid it, made it a bunch of pages, much longer, much more info needed. But it fixes some stuff. It adds the addendum part to it, so you can add stuff there. Adds better lawyer information. But importantly, like one thing was annoying to me, they always ask for the physical address of the applicant, but when they were like getting a re-entry permit, they weren't here that often. We prefer to have like a mailing address. So I would put my law office mailing address there where it asks for the client's physical address. And it's not the perfect answer, so I was always uncomfortable doing that. But now at least you could have a mailing address to make it fixable. They also formalized having U and T advanced parole option there. Some groups, people didn't realize you could do that with advanced parole for them until this came out. So that was interesting. I never done advanced parole for U or T, so it never came up for my business. But they also put in there the military programs like IMVVI. If you don't know about that, I had a discussion about that last top 10. But this is a special program to parole in spouses and certain family members of active duty and retired service members. So it's on there. And interestingly, on the refugee aspect, it asks if you're planning to visit your home country, if you ever use the benefits of your home country, and got any services from them, that kind of stuff. And this is always a worry that people have who have asylum refugee status, that you're not supposed to use your passport or go to your home country and all that kind of stuff. But the refugee travel document from I-131 previously never asked about that, but now they go into detail. So it makes it worrisome that we want to fill that out or not, because then it gives all this information. Obviously, you're not supposed to do that if you're a asylee or refugee. I mean, there are exceptions, I guess, if you're like a dependent, or maybe you could argue that, I guess you're not supposed to do it, but you could argue that, I could go to home country, it won't kill me necessarily, but I can't find work there, or they find out. If I go, I don't even know. I don't want to go to asylum arguments because I don't do asylum. Sorry, I'll take all that back. But nonetheless, the form gets into that. So it's too much now. It went from a really easy form that would take like 5 seconds to complete to now it's a whole thing. So I've never charged for doing I-131 advanced parole for my adjustment cases, but probably going to add a fee for it now, depending on how it goes, more we do it, because it seems like it's going to be more things we got to review, more paper printing, more double checking, more clients asking questions about different parts of it, and it's just going to take longer. So unfortunately, the government made it so that we're going to have to charge for it. Now, point number 4, this is going to be an article in the magazine that's coming up, but I thought I'd give you a heads up for those who can't read the magazine, they'll get access to it. We have a colleague here who does a lot of Indian cases, and he's seeing a bunch of cases where they're accusing parents of U.S. citizens who they're India, child's Indian, gets U.S. citizenship, of smuggling the child to the United States before they became green card holders and citizens. And they're denying it based on a smuggling charge. And this has been rampant in India. Apparently, he's getting a lot of these. So he's challenging them. And so we're getting more information as that's going on. But I just want to give you a heads up. If you have Indian parent cases going through consular processing, see how the child came in here and how the background was, because they could read into that and create problems for you. So something to be very mindful for. It's the last thing you want to deal with the insanity of consular processing. All right, so really quick, I want to mention that we have a marriage green card course. It's been really helpful for many dozens of students, where we go over the whole process of family-based green card, really adjustment of status, how 212 inadmissibility looks, how to analyze that in a consultation, how to do a consultation, how does the contract look, how to charge, all that kind of stuff, consular processing. Everything you can think of when it comes to doing a marriage case is our primary thing that we do in our office and make a good living, have a big team, and it's really well. So I created this course many years ago. I redid it, and it's next level now. I really want you all to know about it, whether it's yourself, associates, they could watch it. If you're new to immigration law, just figuring out, this is the place to go, because we also have office hours. We have one-on-one videos we do. We have group videos we do that are live together. We talk about stuff, and you get probably special discounts on all the other programs that we're going to be offering in our offering. So, for example, right now, if you get it, we'll throw in the O1 seminar. That's like I don't know how many hours. This is like 10 hours of training on O1 visas. So that's going to be really good. We'll throw that in there. That's a couple $1,000s extra on the plate right there for you, and no charge. So hit me up if you're interested and you want to get your practice up and running, or improve or take yourself to the next level. You've been doing court, but you want to start doing USCIS work. That's a big thing that people who buy the course do. They're tired of just going to court all day. You want to work on family practice, get consular processing in there, all that. Hit me up, info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com, or fill out our page on the Toolbox website, iltbox.com. Go to the course page and complete that part that contacts us, and we'll discuss what's involved and what you need. All right, number 5, new I-485 approval, ask for C9 EAD return. So it's very important where you get notices nowadays that you read the approval notices. We're so used to seeing the same documents over and over again. So when I get I-485, for example, adjustment status approval, I'm like, okay, the name's correct and the data, okay, we got it. But now we got to read into it, because they keep changing this darn form and it adds stuff that we don't see. And one of them is that, like, they added a line in there that says you need to return your C9 EAD or work permit card. That's kind of a new thing I've never seen before, but it came up, and that was annoying. And then they other do stuff. You got to pay attention where, if it's an I-130, for example, you mark consular processing, but then they get the approval notice and it says USCIS kept it for adjustment of status. So you said you're in the United States. So they make these kind of errors, or sometimes you make errors, but you need to catch this ahead of time. Read, unfortunately, every approval notice you get, even receipts, because they change. At least glance through it. That's a pro tip, because the government just does things differently every time. Number 6, lost I-130 approval update. Okay, so I had this situation, unfortunately, where I had a couple of approvals for I-130s at the Texas Service Center, and for some reason, it was right around the time there was that big hurricane in Texas, and all these files got lost. I'm like, how do you lose a digital file? But they did. So the National Visa Center, after 3 months, is saying we can't find it. You have to mail a full copy of the case to USCIS, but don't do it yet until you call them and talk with them. So we called them, and they say, okay, wait 30 days. We wait 30 days, call them back, and they say, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, what do you mean? I have a tracking number. Let me talk to a Tier 2 officer. And then the USCIS officer hangs up the phone on you because they don't feel like hearing it. This is the government services. So you call back, and this is an actual scenario, and ask for a Tier 2 officer. And luckily, the Tier 2 officer called back like 2 hours later, because they said an officer is going to call you between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. in the next 30 days, 30 business days. So be prepared. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I have a life. I can't just sit by the phone for 30 days. This is crazy. But luckily, the officer called 2 hours later. Unlikely, the officer had no idea what I was talking about. I'd never heard of it. So he's like, I don't know. Let me do a case request from the Texas Service Center, see if they know. I'm like, are you serious? These people are waiting for 5 months now. This is what you're going to do to us? So, but that's USCIS. So that's so much for complaining about them. One of the cases, we're doing different methods. Contacting the senator for one case to see if that's faster. The senator's office is just not responding. The senator's gotten really bad, most of them. And you got to call them 50 times for them to actually listen to you, and they'll just come up with nothing. But one of the cases, we made an ombudsman's request, and that got fixed in 30 days, where at least USCIS contacted us saying the case was transferred to NBC. We still haven't got the welcome notice. It's been 10 days, so that's about 7 days. But okay, well, hopefully that works. So I went and did that for the other case, too, even though we have a case status request from the Texas Service Center, kind of throwing everything out there. It's adding so much time that we updated our contract to say there's extra fees for government errors, because to fix this kind of stuff, it ends up taking a couple hours, and you constantly, the clients are call you up, they're like angry, and like, do what do you want to do? This is crazy. So we added 2 parts in our contract. Doesn't it bold, like government errors, because it's just getting so much more, and you can expect that it's just going to get worse and worse. There may be additional fees. Now, I always have a tough time charging extra fees or following up on that, but I'm going to try to get more serious about that in the coming business year, fiscal year, so that we're getting paid for not getting paid for doing all this work. It's not fair. Number 7, biometrics after consular processing. We kind of talked about this earlier. But people are getting more and more biometrics notices after they do consular processing and come in the U.S. and even get the green card. And it's really hard because a lot of my clients who get the green card, they come in, they have to immediately leave to go home and finish stuff up. Then they get a biometrics appointment notice. They miss it, then they got to reschedule. Then they can't go in the online system to fix it because this thing's not set up. They go back and forth. It's just a mess. And so just be prepared for that. You may get a notice through biometrics, or the client will and you won't. So how do you deal with that? I don't know. But that's the stuff that's happening. Now, this stuff has happened in the past. I've seen it happen like 10, 15 years ago where they would do biometrics after the plan. But there was a long time where I hadn't seen that happen. But it's happened again in the last 6 months. At least I'm seeing it more. Number 8, recording incoming phone calls. So that's business management. Okay, I'll get into it now anyway. So, we got a call service because what I would do for the last couple of years is for the first 10 years of my practice, I just had my cell phone on the website. And people would just call and I would, answer the phone myself and, close the deal real fast. It was good. When you have a small solo firm, it's like, okay, just pick and choose. I like talking to people. But after a while, I got tired for like 10,000, 15,000 phone calls. I got tired of that. And so I just did this. I have a message that says email us. And that way, just the people who really want to talk with us and who are email and text savvy contact us. And that worked pretty well. But then everyone's like, no, you have to have a phone service. And like I wanted to expand and create a better system and more professional. So I got a phone service. And, we created a script and people call and they do that. And they had the option where you could record the calls and listen to them. I always said no. Because like I was like, maybe if we say your call has been recorded, they won't be as open. And there's confidentiality issues, this and that. I wasn't sure what the rules are. But hey, it gives them notice. They don't have to give their whole life business there. We don't ask like too much intruding questions. We just want their contact info and just generally what the case is about. But so after like 8 months of doing or 9 months of this call service without recording, I saw that like the things that people were talking with me after the fact and what they told me in the call service and their notes, what the person said were different a lot of times. So I'm like, what's going on here? So I recorded and I was like, oh my God, this is the people are doing terrible jobs, but partially 50%. It was because the script I had didn't have a good flow with it. So it was difficult for people to keep going. And you think the company would have, after having hundreds of people doing this, would have known better to like, no, my script isn't good or readjust it or something. But, people, what I realized the more your company is doing less customer service, the more successful you are. That's what they realized in life. The more you care about your clients and are working hard, the less successful you're going to be. But anyway, so we redid the script and that helped out a lot to create the flow better and take less time on the phone call because eventually you're getting paying by the minute. Ideally, I'd have my own internal call service because every time someone calls them, it's just a different person. So there's no built-up knowledge happening on how our clients call us, what they're asking for, or at immigration law. Every time this new person doesn't know us or who we are, what they're doing. So it just reinvented the wheel every time. So I love to have just in-house the phone service right now. It's too much work and cost to set it up. But that's something I really want to do because I think that's going to build a lot of value. Because I realized from listening to recordings and some of them just were talking terribly to people or just incompetent, that's the front face of the business. The first actual interaction they have with our company, when they call us, that's the front face of it. It's the most important. I used to work at a restaurant. Essentially my first job, maybe a second job, when I was like in high school in 16, 17, is that this restaurant opened up, Islands Restaurant. I was a host there. And they spent 2 days just practicing, 2 full days, practicing when someone walks in how to say hello. And that was so important. I was annoying at the time, but I realized, it's the first interaction they have. So the host has to be really important. It's the most important aspect because then that sets the tone. If you're like, and I go to restaurants and I pay attention to it too, and hosts don't even look up when they see you. They take forever to say hi. I'm like, why way too cool? What's going on? And like they just put a foul taste in a person's mouth because they don't look up, they don't talk with you, they don't greet you, they don't explain what's going on because you're just standing there like, okay, did I interrupt you or I not? At least look up and say, hi, just a moment. I'm sorry. I got to get this. I'll be right back with you. Just somebody leave you at time. That's real important. And so the front face of the company is so important. These call services, probably all of them are going to be like this. So you control it in-house. Even then, it's a lot of work. But that's something really important that I did this recording. So I'd recommend doing that for you too. And then it's like, should you do it for consultations? I don't know. That's one step at a time. Because I could listen to my own consultation, could have sold better, where I was like could have been more polite, and also when team members do intakes or consults, checking their work, is good or not. So one thing at a time, but that's something to get into. Number 9, matter of Devison. Okay, Devison. So I as y'all know, probably you listed. I don't do immigration, but I had a consult on that. So for a person that was arrested when they were a kid and got a conviction as a minor, and after I did realize that was a consultation, I was like, you know what, I'll just do the research for it and learn what's going on in immigration. And I came back to this matter of Devision, Devision. It's like a BIA case, I think, or I can't remember what it was. But important to this, like again, you gotta individually go and study your cases. But if a person's a minor and they're like convicted under a minor statute, that's not considered a crime. It's like a civil thing, so it doesn't even pop up. It's not an issue for immigration. It's pretty crazy. Now there's always nuances to this. Again, watch out for that. But I was like pretty amazing. I'm like, oh, if you're under 18, and these are like a youthful conviction, all that kind of stuff, doesn't fall within some sort of exception, then it's good. So this guy, he had charges, crime charges, but he was a minor. Shouldn't be a problem for Nats, and it's not removable. So I was like pretty amazing. I had to realize that. So for all that don't do immigration, that might pop up. I want to let you know that this thing exists like that. Number 10. Okay, so I have more stuff, but I'll just leave it for the next episode. Number 10 is pretty interesting. A family friend put me onto this, and it was pretty crazy. So there's this whole racket for helping to make B2 fraud cases for tourist visas for people to come here. And what they do is they create false conferences and events, and people register for them. So when they go for the B2 interview, they say, okay, I'm in this field, I'm a doctor, something like that. There's a big conference in New York for doctors, I'm going. And they use that to get the visa. And then over time, the officers look it up and they realize this event doesn't exist. It's a fake page they made on some website. And they just charge people for it to be able to use it, get the registration, so they could bypass the embassy system, or at least claim that they're doing this conference. So then those people are getting caught with fraud. A lot of South Asia, Middle East kind of clients are having it like this. And then, unfortunately, it hits a secondary fraud, which is what happened to our family friend, which is a doctor. And they heard about this conference that was in New York. And they're like, oh, interesting, I want to go. So they paid the fee, went and get the visa. The officer made a fraud finding. He's like, what's going on? It's like, there's no conference. We know you're committing fraud. This doesn't exist. He's like, no, I really thought it was a conference. I was excited to go there. But now he's got a fraud finding. I wouldn't believe him. So, this could probably be a problem where some people may have, it's hard to, they'd probably want to look back up, but imagine they came on B2, got married, and filed for citizenship. Later on, they look, the USCIS says, oh, you did fraud, that event didn't exist. I don't think they go that far into it, but these minefields could pop up, so it's something to be mindful of on these kind of things. But that was a pretty messed up situation, especially when you thought it was a real conference you're going into, and it turns out it's not, and you get a fraud finding because of that, and you're stuck essentially having to get an NIV waiver. Is just going to be very difficult to do and expensive, and all that hassle. So just to say something interesting I thought I'd share with you, I learned about a couple weeks back. Having said that, hey, join our E2 live session. If you can't make this one, hit me up. We'll probably going to do more because there seems like it'd be a lot of demand for it. We go over an actual case study. I redacted the case, go through page by page what I submitted to the government, and things I learned or things that we could do or strategies, all that kind of stuff. info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com is the place to go. I'm Immigration Lawyer John Khosravi. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll talk with you soon. Bye-bye.